Hello again and welcome back. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to use some of the symbology options in ArcGIS to display your data more effectively on a map. We'll cover choosing color ramps, changing how many groups your data is broken up into, normalizing your data, and choosing between different chart types to show on top of your data. I'll also point out a couple advanced features that we'll see along the way, but that we won't cover in this particular class. We'll show them in a future class in this specialization instead. So to start us off, since we already saw how to break out data by categories when we displayed our HUC12s by the HUC8 field in a previous lecture, I'm going to skip over that for now in the interest of time and show you, to start with, how to display some population data, some quantitative data as the symbology for your county. So to do that, we'll bring up the Layer Properties pane and go to the Symbology tab. And I'm going to skip over the categories where we've done a little bit of this. And I'm going to go straight to quantities for this lecture. And to start with, it's really similar to what we saw with categories. We select a field that contains the values we want to symbolize by, and then it's going to give us groupings down below. So let's view the total population by county in the state of California. So to do that, since I'm already on the counties layer, I'll just select in the value field, the total population field. And by default, it gives me 5 groups down below here. And it uses this color ramp that I chose before. And then it also chooses 5 classes to break it into and uses the natural breaks method to find the boundary lines between these different groups. They're not split into even groups. If I wanted to change how they were split up, I'd click the Classify button and I can modify that there. We'll cover that in a future class. For now, let's just accept the defaults and click OK. And there we go. The state is divided up by total population per county. And we can see that by default, it found only one value to be put in this largest class. And then it found a few for the orange, the second largest class, a few more for the smaller class, and then the other 2 ended up containing the bulk of the state. One thing I noticed about this is that I'm not sure that the green to red color ramp is the best choice for this. We're used to red meaning high intensity, and there's certainly a high intensity amount of population in Los Angeles County down here. But green to red often conveys a good to bad scale rather than just a lots of people here scale. So I might want to change the color ramp to something more neutral. So let's go back and do that now. And if I click on the color ramp, I'll choose a more neutral ramp such as this white to purple one here. If I click OK, we see much more intensity, but we don't have those values projected onto our map. One other thing I want to point out about the color ramps is that we can view them graphically by default, but if I right click on it and uncheck the graphic view option here, I get a list of descriptions, which in some ways seems less useful, except for that some of them are named by purpose. So for slopes or for surfaces or for temperatures. So it can be a good suggestion to you of what other people are expecting you to display your data as. Precipitation, LAYS class codes, that's for LiDAR data, things like that. So just check that out, make sure you know how to use that because every once in a while it comes in really handy. Similarly, if I right clicked on here and did properties, I can create my own custom color ramp. So I don't have to just settle for the built-in ones in ArcGIS, but those are very good usually. So I pointed out that we can change the number of groups here before, but let's just do that now to see what happens. And it just automatically splits it up for us. And I can click apply and take a look at how that splits up the state. We still have LA in 1, but there's more of a fine gradient. One consequence of this is that it can be really hard in a legend for people to identify which group something's in. When you're looking across an area, it can be hard to tell whether or not this and this are the same color or this and this without them being right next to each other or when the legend's far away. So be careful about doing more than about 5 groups. So I'll pop that back over to 5 groups for now, click apply, and let's try something new. So instead of displaying the total population, I'm going to display the percentage of the population that is Asian in California. And I can show just the number of Asian people here. And that's kind of a relative metric per county here. But I can also show it normalized to the total population of each county. Normalization shows a value of interest, in this case, the number of Asian people in each county, as a percentage of a total. So if we select from the normalization menu, the total population, ArcGIS divides the value in the attribute table for each record in the Asian field by the value for total population and gives us a proportion down here and reassigns it. And what will happen if we click apply is we see these things change, because while relative to the whole state, these counties in here may not have a lot of Asian people, they have a lot more relative to their total population in their county. This can be a really useful way to explore your data and explore different demographic trends. What if I wanted to see more information about the racial breakouts of each county here? I can't really show multiple races in this format, so we need a new symbology type to do that. So let's bring this over here so we can see it again. And the symbology type that'll do that for us is in the charts section. So as shown down here in this helpful little icon, charts can give us pie charts or stacked value charts or bar and column charts based on any attributes that we want to select in our attribute table. So this is really handy for showing large amounts of information from the attribute table right on the map, right on top of your geometry. So what we'll do here is I'm going to select each of the races here, and I'm just going to pop them over to the right side, and we'll choose a different color ramp here, another kind of neutral color ramp, and I'm going to click apply. And ArcGIS draws pie charts on top of these symbols for me. There are a lot of options that I can play around with in here, but I'm going to leave that to you for now. I just want to show you what the possibilities here are. The primary one that you'd probably want to play around with in this situation is the size panel here, because these features are a little hard to see what's going on under them and which feature they're assigned to, even with the leader lines. So it'd probably be appropriate to play with that until they actually showed up on your map in a way you could still see them and also see your geometry. So while we have a useful breakout of the racial information per county here, we still have lost that statewide trend again. So if we want to be able to see both, we're going to need a different chart. And in this case, we'd use the stacked chart to achieve that. And I'll add all of these back over again and select another neutral palette, click apply. And what we get instead is a whole different variation on the chart. And it's a little hard to see here. And that's for two reasons. One is the color ramp I selected wasn't particularly good in this case. And two, it's that Los Angeles is such a big county in terms of population that most of these others become nearly invisible. I'd argue that it's so big that it makes this style of map nearly useless for this particular use case. But you may have some use cases for this where it's not. There's not really a right or wrong choice for these types of maps. It's really about what works best for the data that you're working with and the theme that you're trying to convey with the map. Okay, I want to show you one more technique with symbology before we wrap this up. And to do that, I'm going to switch over to a different data frame that has a different set of data layers in it, one that you'll be very familiar with. It's the rivers layer again. What I'm going to show you here is how we can set different symbol sizes based on attributes instead of different symbol colors. This can be useful for anything from volumes of shipments along a route to volumes of traffic or volumes of water, which is what I'm going to show you. To get a little bit better of a view, let's zoom into a different part of the state here. And then let's open up the Symbology palette. And this one is once again under quantities, but instead of graduated colors, which is what we used before, I'm going to use graduated symbols. And as you can see with what we did before, you can use it with point data down here where it will scale the point symbol size based on your attributes. And we're going to do it in this case with lines instead. I have a template feature class over here. So I'm going to select the blue rivers right over here. And then it gives me the option to set the symbol size range. So it's going to give me symbols ranging from half a point to all the way up to 4 points. And I'll select the value field for it to do that scaling. And in this case, I'm going to use that total drainage area square kilometers field that you've seen me use before. So I'll select that, and it's telling me that its maximum sample size is reached, which means that it went through a bunch of records, but it didn't look through all of them. So it can't guarantee that all of the values are going to fit in the ranges that it's showing me. That's okay in this case. And what we see here now is we see 5 groupings, and they're grouped by the size of the river, or what we're using as a proxy for size. The drainage area means that it's going to have more area upstream for larger numbers, so it's more likely to have larger amounts of water in it with a larger drainage area. So we're using it as kind of a proxy. Once again, I can do normalization. I can select the number of classes, and a couple other features in here. So I'm going to leave it as a default though, and we're going to click apply and see what happens. And what we get is a more typical rivers map. Close it out so I could see a little better. And we have these main stem rivers that are receiving much more of the water and get bigger and bigger as we flow downhill. This is what we would expect in the water world. And maybe you could use this same sort of technique if you're visualizing movement of goods or traffic of people on particular corridors or things like that. Okay, that's it for this lesson. In this lesson, we covered how to display your quantitative data on your maps in ArcGIS. We also covered how to choose different color ramps and changing the breaks in classes and normalizing your data. I also showed you how to put charts on top of your features to display different groupings of data. And finally, we covered how to have ArcMap scale the size of your symbols based on values in your features attribute table. In the next lesson, we're going to cover one of the topics we haven't touched on yet, which is labeling your feature information on your map. It's really great to be able to display your features, but if people don't know what they are, it can be really hard for you to share your maps. See you there.